Hey, thanks for clicking on Wayne.com for this week's edition of Inside the Zone. No Shane Albahrani this week. Instead, a member of the coaching staff, Ben Boudreau. Good to have you.
Hey, thanks for joining me. It's a tough shadow to live in. Shane's there, but I'll do the best I can today.
I understand. I imagine a long road trip back from Wheeling. You played a Sunday afternoon game, but a good road trip back when you have a 5-4 victory in the back of your pocket.
A lot, yeah, a lot more smiles, that's for sure. You know, it's a little bit more lighthearted, and it's not even just the road trip, but I think it makes the whole week right up until the next game that much easier because you rest on what you last accomplished, and if we had gone into that break, I think it would have been that much longer of a break for us.
We'll talk some more hockey here in just a second, but let's get people to know you, because you said before the show you were involved in broadcasting before, kind of the transition between being a player and being a coach. You did some broadcasting there. How did that work out?
Yeah, when I was doing junior hockey, I went to college for broadcasting. You know, did everything behind the scenes, and we worked on the camera crews, the movies, everything we did there, and went and chased my dream. We played hockey, loved every single minute of it, and when that was done, I wanted to go and transition right back into the whole TV thing. So that was a great 4, 5, 6 months until the TV station shut down, and ultimately it forced me right back into hockey, which was the best move. But it was a great 6 months while I did it.
No reflection on your talent level, though, I'm sure, right?
I don't think so. We weren't bringing in any money, so that wasn't my job. But the product I put out was great.
It would have folded a lot earlier, no doubt. But you kept it on. You kept it running for 6 months.
Hey,
sure.
I gave the people what they wanted to see. What can I say?
Speaking of what they want to see, everybody knows about your family. Of course, your mom. That's the first person that everybody talks to you about, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But your dad has done something pretty impressive in the game of hockey. Obviously, an NHL head coach, multiple stops. I know this is a question you get all the time, but like, what do you take away from your dad being as successful as he has in the game of hockey?
I just think that it's a classic story of somebody just going after what they've always wanted. I mean, he's always known hockey. He's been in hockey ever since he's a little guy. That's all he ever wanted to do, and I just think he kept chasing every opportunity that was ever presented to him, and it's brought him good fortune. He didn't make the NHL until he was 52, 53 years old. So he played right up until he was in his late 30s. Coached another 16, 17 years. I can't tell you how many different cities he had lived in right up until there, until he got his shot. So it was a lifelong dream, and I think he's still 13 years in the NHL. He's still chasing for that Stanley Cup. So it's a never-ending chase.
You feel like hockey is in your blood? I know we talked about it at the beginning of last season, actually, that as a kid, you remember running around at the Coliseum way back in the day when he was coaching here in Fort Wayne.
Yeah, it's in the blood. There's no question. I mean, I was born in Germany when my father played overseas, my other brother in Halifax, my one brother in Mississippi, my sister in Toronto, and that's all because of wherever we were as a family at the time through my father's hockey career. And growing up in Canada, you know, it's in your blood to love the sport. When you have somebody as your father involved in it, you take that much more of a liking. So we always grew up playing, watching, you know, being around it. We got the behind-the-scenes look at the rinks, which I thought was always such a cool thing. But for us, it wasn't, you know, a big-time celebrity experience. That was just what was natural to us. We grew up at the rink, and you know, for us, that was always natural to be involved in hockey one way or the other. So to kind of take it on as a career, and I don't think it's really anything you trail-based, but that's just a genuine passion from everyone, including myself, that I just love the sport and want to be involved any possible way I can.
How cool was it then that the opportunity arose last year when Gary offered you the job to be an assistant here, knowing that you've been to Fort Wayne before, you're a bit familiar with the city, although you were pretty young at the time, but you also know the passion that is behind, you know, Comets fandom and the whole Comets aura here in the city of Fort Wayne?
Well, that to me was one of the greatest things. You know, there was the first time I pulled into Fort Wayne, it was a 80, 90-year-old lady that I met at the apartment complex who said, and my father was with me, she said, "Didn't you used to play for the Comets?" And he's looking at her, it's like, this is almost, you know, 25, 30 years ago. How do you remember me? And so just the following, you know, being a Comet was so special. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't something to shake a stick at. I mean, you're really somebody when you're a Comet. There's such a legacy and a foundation that's been poured here in Fort Wayne, that it was just something to be a part of. That I looked forward to. And you hear all these great stories that are being told. I mean, John Anderson, again, who was one of my father's best friends, he'd always talk about what it was like to play in Fort Wayne. And so I was really excited to come here and get involved. And when we went on that playoff run, every single story lived up to its billing. It was such a great city with great fan support, great organizational support all the way around. So everything I had ever heard about Fort Wayne came true last year, and we've enjoyed every single second of it.
You've kind of taken a similar role to your father in the fact that your son, born here, was, gosh, what is he, about 15 months old now?
Yeah, 15, almost 16 months, and I think that's a really cool thing, to have that, no matter where I'll be in my career, whether it's 30 years from now when maybe my son's looking back on it with the same opportunity, traveling around with the hockey family and saying, yeah, Fort Wayne was a great place to be. It's a great spot to raise a family, and they welcome you like they're one of their own. So I've had nothing but blessings being here so far.
If I remember correctly, you're a huge Seinfeld fan.
Yeah, huge Seinfeld.
Favorite episode?
We were just talking about this the other day,
yeah.
but I'm a big marine biologist fan. I don't know if you're a Seinfeld guy at all, but anybody that is out there, it's tough to keep together watching that episode. I'm a big fan of it.
See, I'm a big fan of the Merv Griffin episode where Kramer gets this is kind of like that.
Yeah, the old Merv Griffin set. Come on down.
Why, Ben? You get more handsome every time you're on the show.
Yeah. We know that's a lie, but that's...
that was my Elaine Bennis story. But let's talk a little bit of hockey now, because you got 30 games left here in the regular season. The month of January is behind you. January, you go 6-3-2 during that month, which looks great on paper, but it was a very roller coaster type month. You started off really hot, then kind of didn't play as well, and now with a win against Wheeling, played back. How do you guys look forward to the following or the upcoming 30 games? What are the things that you are looking to make sure that you do on the ice to guarantee some more wins and punch your ticket to the postseason?
Yeah, I just think you keep hammering home the things you do really well. When we've been going to the net and we've been getting some great traffic and we've been shooting and crashing and converging, I think that's led to a lot of success. And I think when you hammer out home those points and you show what you do to be successful, you continue to do those things. And obviously it's the flip side of that, the things you want to clear up, you keep working on those until you're really satisfied. And from a coaching staff, I know you're never really satisfied until you win the last game of the season, right, which is the big one. So we keep working towards that goal, and we keep praying for health as we've been really banged up here. After that 5-game streak, we've had some guys sacrificing their bodies, and it happens every single year at any given point, whether it's the start of the season, the middle, or the end. I think every team goes through the injury bug. We're dealing with it now, so to be treading water with just above 500 for the month, I think we're in a good spot here to close out the final run of the season.
Yeah, and one of those injuries is Haji's dealing with a hand.
Yeah.
We saw him, he didn't play the weekend before the All-Star game, did score 2 goals in the All-Star game,
yeah.
But because that's a no-contact situation, he's still going to be out a couple of weeks. What's the situation with him, and how important is he for this team going forward?
Matt Willett, our trainer, he does a great job, and working with him and Justin, obviously, I think he wants to be back as soon as he possibly can. We want him back. We definitely miss him in the middle, being our only right shot center. Mm-hmm. He's great on the power play. That helps there. In the locker room, a veteran guy too. So that there's lots of areas where we miss him for sure, but I think his health is first and foremost, and you don't want to rush him back too early because you have the big picture, in your head. So we'll just take it one day at a time, and when our doctors and when Matt tells us that he's ready to go, we'll welcome him back into the lineup.
When you take a look at the goaltending situation right now, Fucali up in the AHL, you guys have had Levine play. He started on Sunday, played pretty well. Also, obviously, you have 2 guys right now that can play, that can start with Hafner and Levine. What are you trying to see from each of these guys? Because obviously that's a difficult situation. Both of these guys, I assume, want to be the man.
Yeah, well, it's great to create or foster a competition, right, where one guy's pushing the other guy. So when one guy wins and the other guy has an opportunity, you're pushing them to be better. And I think it's great. It's great for our team when those guys are trying to battle as hard as they can to be the man. Eric wants an opportunity with us, and Hafner, he's been a part of 2 championship teams, and we've seen the performances that he's given us up and down the lineup in this season. So I think when those guys push each other to be better, I think we're coming out on the good end for that. So as long as those guys keep challenging each other to be better every single day, then I think that's a healthy competition.
You're there every game, you're there every practice. You see the things that we don't, that fans don't. Who is the guy that is kind of the unsung hero for this team right now? Because, you see Haji score, you see Camara score, you see Campagna score, you'll see guys like Crunk fight it out. But who are some of the guys that are unsung heroes at this point for the Comets?
Well, if you look at the games played, a guy like Anthony Petruzzelli, for me, is somebody that just everybody loves. The guy comes to work every single day. He's one of the guys that if you tell him to do something, you know that he's going to be a guy to go and do that. And offensively, he's been right there contributing up and down the lineup, but he doesn't get talked about. He hasn't missed a single game this season. He plays hard. He plays the right way. He's constantly moving. He keeps himself in great shape. He's a consummate professional, a guy that just everybody loves, that you want to tip your cap to, because I think he's really the driving force behind a lot of the energy that brings us, some success in the game. So he's really been driving our offense as of late. So I think one of those guys that doesn't get the recognition that he deserves.
He's had some big goals at times this year, and I want to talk about the way you guys are finishing games, because you take a look at the numbers, and that's one of the impressive things about this team so far this year. 16-2-2 and taking the lead into the third, and more importantly, 13-4-2 in one-goal games. I want to speak to those one-goal games, because how are you able to pull those games out in those tight situations? Is it veteran leadership? Is it execution? I mean, what is it exactly? Can you pinpoint that's allowed you to have those success in those tight games, which is what you're going to see in the postseason?
Yeah, well, you look at our leadership group to begin with, and I think we're fortunate where we've had guys that have played for the same organization for a number of years. You've got Haji, you've got Shasma, and you've got Solar that have all been contributing. So being there and being able to do it before, they're all champions in their own right. Even Marco Waugh, who's wearing a letter for us, or Binkley at those times, Sadlowski, who's worn a letter for us. They've all been in those scenarios. So to give a message, have it received, and then reinforced by our veteran leadership, I think a lot of the young guys that we have on our team, the new wave of Comets, the Camrasses, the Petruzzellis, a lot of the young guys, they see the older guys do it. They see them live by it, and I think it's not a motivation thing, it's an inspiration thing, that when they're doing it themselves, it just inspires everybody else to kind of get on board and give the same type of effort from our veterans.
Kind of a weird weekend for you guys. You're talking about it's the week after the All-Star break, the week after All-Star week. You only have one game this week. It's a home game Saturday against a team that you don't see all that often in Rapid City. You played them 3 games up at their place, went 2-1 back in November. Is there a lot that you can take away? And also, how difficult is it to prepare for a week? You guys are used to playing 2 games, sometimes 3 games in a weekend, and you don't have a weekday game. You just have a Saturday game, and that's it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's up for Gary and I to come up with a plan, and we'll start with that tomorrow, and then we'll work all week towards that. It's not that we have a plan for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We get to focus on our opponent for Saturday. We know these guys are going to come in. They're going to work their tails off. That's their MO. They won't stop working. So I think a compete and a work ethic is going to be first and foremost for us this weekend. They just lost their leading scorer, their all-star, Andrew Rajenovic, to Slovakia, so they're missing some firepower, but you don't take them lightly at all, because they're going to put in an honest, hard work and effort. So I think if our effort is there and we're playing the right way, managing pucks, and we get the goaltending, I think we'll be all right, as we usually are when all those things are firing.
Yeah, there was 160-odd penalty minutes in that 3-game series when you played them back in November. So maybe not a lot of love lost between these two teams?
No, you know what? They've got a tough team. We don't want to get into one of those battles for them, because I don't think that's necessarily where our strength is. Of course, we got guys that are willing to do that, muck it up. Obviously Krunke, he brings it every single day. We've got Sescon back there. We've got Solar back there. Sid's been able to do that for us. But that's, we want those guys playing on the ice, where I think that's where they're most effective. So if we can have those guys working for us and we can stay away from playing their game and we make them play ours, I think that's where we want to get them.
The final question, looking at the big picture, obviously the Central Division is tight. Going forward, what is it going to take from you guys, and what are some of the things that you are focusing on, like tangibly in practice, to get you guys to the point where you can make the playoffs and make some noise in the playoffs? Because, I mean, everybody expects Comet hockey to last into May and as long as possible, really. Yeah,
the intangibles have to be there. We've talked about getting PK blocks, which I think has been huge, and then ever since that became one of the first things that we've really talked about. Our PK has been great. We've been getting guys selling out and doing that, because that's what it takes to win in the playoffs. And then, goes into puck management, unnecessary turnovers at the offensive blue line, defensive blue line. We need to stress the way that's the way we need to play these last 30 games to get into the playoffs. And, if that's the way we're going to have success, it's going to be make us playoff ready, because we want to be playing these last 30 games the right way. And if we can play it the right way down the stretch here, I think we'll be ready to be jumping right in there.
I guess I have 2 more questions.
Yeah.
One, What's it like to coach under Gary? Because he seems pretty intense. He's a guy, we had him in here a couple weeks ago. He's a bit of a videophile, loves to break it all down, and he said he's kind of handed that to you, and you've picked up on that. And so just what's it like to coach under Gary? And also, how much pressure do you put on yourself, considering where your dad has been? I know that's a question you probably get all the time, but when you see that kind of success, I mean, that's, I think, the natural thing people latch on to is, oh, what's it like to have your dad like that?
Well, I mean, my dad's just a support system all the time. If I have a question or something, he's always there. He's always there to offer support. And I don't think there's any pressure to be him, because naturally I'm not going to get to where I want to be by trying to coach like him. I got to coach the way Ben Boudreau is used to coaching, what I believe is the right way. And as far as coaching with Gary, I think intense is a great word to describe him. He's extremely passionate. He's a Comet through and through. He'll be a Fort Wayne Comet his entire life, and he's a winning coach. The only coach in this league to make it to the second round of the playoffs in the last 5 years, and I think that's the expectation that he puts on the players. He fosters a winning environment that there's, it's not acceptable to lose once or be mediocre for a single period. He fosters that excellence, and he makes you want to believe that that's the right way to play. And it's worked for him, and that's one of the biggest things I've picked up. I've worked with 5 coaches in 5 different years, and he's extremely dedicated to wanting to win here in Fort Wayne, which I think is completely honorable, because he wants to win more than anybody else. So to work with a guy like that, I'd consider myself a pretty lucky guy.
All right. Well, we appreciate the time, Ben. Thank you for coming into the studio, and it's been a pleasure to watch you. And definitely got a chance to talk to your dad when he came during that break last year. It was you realize why they call him Gabby a little bit.
Yeah, he loves to talk too. Sometimes I think I've picked up on that bug a little bit, but as a family, I had great memories here. Some that I'm making for myself. So we all consider Fort Wayne a second home away from home, even though this is the majority where we're living. So we love it here, and thanks for the invite.
All right, thank you. He's Ben, I'm Glenn, and we'll see you next Monday right here on Inside the Zone.